don't try to say things that will prove you're not prejudiced, like some of my best friends are, or my cousin married or something. Don't go down that path. That will be a red flag. Just try to take it as an opportunity to learn about somebody else's experience in life. Acknowledge that they implicitly, not explicitly, but implicitly understand they could have a somewhat different experience of this society than you do. And this is a topic and a set of people with whom you can maybe find out about that experience.
Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of PsychSessions, conversations about teaching and stuff. I'm Eric Landrum, and I am here with my par excellent co-host, Garth Neufeld. Hi, Garth.
Eric, this is a big day for us. I don't think we dreamed that this day would come.
Buddy, I think you're exactly right. We are thrilled to be providing this brief introduction to our 250th episode of the flagship PsychSessions podcast featuring Claude Steele.
I had the opportunity to sit down with Claude at NITOP 2026, and I want to just thank Steve Chu for helping to make that happen, and to Claude's team as well. We knew as soon as he gave us the green light that he was interested in being interviewed, that this would be our 250th episode. Not that all of our interviewees aren't special. And Eric, if you've ever heard PsychSessions, loves them all. And they're all his favorite. I know you do. But this is a special one. This is a researcher who has been at it for a long time, who has given us some very important findings and has communicated those in a way that I think has changed the lives of many people in the way that we think about stereotypes. And he does not disappoint in this interview either. He gave a keynote talk at NITOP, and then I tagged him for this interview, which we're going to get you to in just a moment. But before we do, Eric, we're going to continue this conversation over as a sidebar to just talk about what it's like to have 250 episodes under our belt. But what else do you want to just mention here? If people don't pop over, what do you want to mention?
Well, a couple things. First off, I want to congratulate Garth, because Garth is the guy who oftentimes does the gets. Garth has no fear, which is something I really respect and admire. He's the guy that interviewed Claude Steele or Phil Zimbardo or Albert Bandura. I mean, the greats of 21st century American psychology. And so kudos to you, my friend, for, going the extra mile, traveling to NITOP and collecting that interview with one of the most important psychologists of our time. Switching gears a bit, I'm just thankful for PsychSessions. I just have a ton of gratitude for PsychSessions. And none of this happens without our listeners. None of this happens without the people who are listening to us right now. Garth and I get to do this really cool thing and we do it with so many other people, by the way, guest hosts and employees and student workers, where we get to create content and give it away for free. And so we're always thanking our sponsors and our donors. And that's why a commercial drops in from time to time, because it helps pay for all the things so that we can give away the content for free. And so I'm just really thankful, really grateful.
Yeah, Eric, I don't know too many working relationships that have. We're going to celebrate 10 years this October, probably at ACT in St. Louis. And I don't know many working relationships, at least I don't have them outside of my nonprofit, Shared Space for All, that have. Well, I'm married to the co-founder. So, but this is a marriage of sorts. It's great. It has been great for the last 10 years. And I look forward to the next chapters of PsychSessions. And you and I have talked about what that might look like. And so some exciting things are coming, folks. We are not done, not by any stretch of the imagination. So thanks for listening. Eric, final words?
I'll just do a yes and here, which is if you look at the data from podcasting, very few podcasts last 10 years. And yes, there are some out there that have been over 20 years, but that list is a small list. And so we're thankful for all the people who have contributed, who have been our guests, who will be our guests sometime in the next 250 episodes. Imagine that celebration for the 500th episode. Won't that be grand?
Hi, my name is Drew Christopher. I joined SDP back in 1996 because I just wanted to be a better teacher, and I figured something called the Society for the Teaching of Psychology would help me in that regard, and it did. I became involved in a variety of task force, a variety of working groups, and so forth early on in my career. And looking back on it now, I think one of the biggest benefits wasn't just becoming a better teacher, but all the colleagues that I met along the way, and I'm still friends with today, who are also helping me still be a good teacher, if not a great teacher. Those professional connections have lasted a lifetime, and both personally and professionally, they're probably one of the most rewarding things that I can look back on the over 30 years I've been teaching and say it's probably the best thing I've ever done.
To join the Society for the Teaching of Psychology for only $35 a year, please visit teachpsych.org. APA Publishing wants to give you 15% off your order. If you teach classes like counseling, clinical psychopathology, or multicultural psychology, then this is for you. APA Publishing has books that are written by experts that are grounded in evidence and really help teachers. I'll give you a couple of examples. There's a book they have right now called Helping Skills. It's in its 6th edition, and it gives students clear, practical frameworks for understanding and learning counseling techniques. It's perfect for hands-on practice and skill development. Here's another one. Cultural Humility helps students build self-awareness and engage meaningfully across diverse identities and experiences. So head to apa.org because they want to give you 15% off your order today using code PS15. That's capital P, capital S, 15. Go check out APA Publishing.
Folks, it's my great pleasure to sit here today at NITOP 2026 with Claude Steele, professor of psychology at Stanford University. You've had a lot of other roles there, but right now, professor of psychology. Is that right?
That's right.
All right.
Yep.
Well, welcome. And thanks for the great talk that we all just heard you give.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this too before you jet out to see your students tomorrow.
Yeah. School starts tomorrow. So.
That's right. That's right.
It's a cruelly abrupt beginning of the winter quarter. So I got to get back.
How do you, I just heard you give this talk, and I think a lot of the ideas that you brought from this talk were related to your new book called Churn. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure we'll talk about that. But how do you approach your first day with students? Because you just talked to us about how important it is to really bring like a welcoming environment and make sure that students are feeling belonging. How do you do that just right off the bat?
Well, you know, it's a very good question. And I think, and I'm not sure I have an explicitly understood strategy there, but implicitly, I think as the ideas unfold, students start to feel that their experiences are recognized in this course. And I think that goes a long way in their having some assurance that, oh, this is a place where maybe I can get some of the questions I have about my life and circumstances, get those questions answered, and maybe understand things about it. So I think the inherent offer of the course, as it's conveyed in the first sessions, enlists them. The course I'm going to teach tomorrow, I teach in partnership with Hazel Marcus, and she brings in a cultural perspective on this. I guess I would describe myself as looking at more of the structural modes of identity functioning in society. And so the two of us together really do kind of, as the topic gets introduced, I think they begin to relax and realize that there's enough space in the way this is conceptualized that they can kind of say what they want to say, and put on the table what their needs are. So I think it kind of takes care of itself that way.
Well, as we get going in this conversation, it might help folks who weren't at your talk today to get a brief overview of kind of where is your thinking now. You have this new book coming out. Many people know you prior to Whistling Vivaldi, but that was also a well-read book, especially by faculty at institutions of higher learning. And outside of psychology too. So where have those, maybe you could just run us through real quick, what the premise of Whistling Vivaldi was, and then how do we get to churn here today?
Sure. Whistling Vivaldi was sort of the story, in my mind, is sort of the story of how that construct of stereotype threat emerged in our research program over the years. I was more concerned there with trying to, excite especially young researchers with the fun of doing research, that you can take on issues that are really of great interest to you personally, and you presume to society in general. You can take those issues on kind of, and through the methods and the theories available in a field like social psychology, you can make some progress with regard to understanding them and giving people a new perspective. And I wanted to sort of counter the view that you might get if you just read the journals, where you think it's all so polished and finished when it's in a journal article. You could think, my God, how could I ever do something so polished and finished? But the truth about research is that it is an ongoing investigative story, like a good detective story. And the experience of it can be like that, which is very engaging. And so I wanted to convey that in that book. Churn is a little different. There, I'm taking on a different issue, which is the issue of diversity, and how in the particular settings of our lives, our classrooms, our basketball teams, our work spaces, our small businesses, how do we get diversity to work in those situations? It's a question that came, from the stereotype threat research, but also from just the experience of being a university administrator and having responsibility for that, and experiencing what it takes for an institution to take on those issues, what it's like over many years. So it isn't a book focused so much on the effects of stereotype threat on performance as the 30 years of literature around that problem have focused on. It's more using the concept of stereotype threat to understand what's difficult about diversity. And, to just remind everybody, stereotype threat is just the simple experience of being in a situation, or you're doing something for which a negative stereotype about one of your identities is relevant. So at my age, I think about the identity of age and the stereotypes about it. And I just came through the holidays with my young grandsons, for example, and how they see their old papa and his technological incompetencies compared to their incredible competency. So, you're in a kind of stereotype pressure there. Now, that's not a particularly important situation. So it's more humorful and fun in a way of connecting. But if you're in a situation that's very important, a classroom, a doctor's office, you're stopped by a policeman. You are concerned about how based on your identity you could be perceived there, can become very powerful, very psychologically intrusive capturing of a person, and to understand stereotype, I think the most important thing is to understand that it's a predicament. It's not just being in a situation where the stereotype is relevant; it's being in a situation where the stereotype is relevant that is also very important to you. to important outcomes, then you feel the pressure of that. And so in diverse situations where we work, where we go to school, the link that came to me, so to speak, is that that's an inherent feature of diversity, is that when we're in diverse situations, we're with people from different identities, meaningfully different identities, we know we could be judged and treated in terms of negative stereotypes about our identity. When we're in a more homogeneous environment, that pressure is lessened. Where, they have the same identity we do. So I'm not so worried about being stereotyped in that mean way. But when in diversity, we all of a sudden, all of us have identities. And because we know we are in a spot where people could see us in terms of these things, we don't know that they will. That's the notion of churn, that we're trying to figure out whether they will. We're trying to figure out what's going to happen to me here based on my identity. Is this a place where everything is good and I'm secure, or is this a place where I got to stay vigilant to the possibility of discrimination or devaluation based on my identity? That's where the term churn comes, to try to capture that subjective experience.
Did you come up with the word, or was it did somebody help you with that? Because when you explained the word churn, I thought it's perfect for understanding what happens. Somebody walks into a space, enters a situation where stereotype threat is in play, and now the churning starts, and how would you describe churning? Like trying to figure out where they fit into this current situation? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, it came to me just based on being so familiar, thinking so much about these processes. What I need is a term that kind of points to the psychological experience of being under these pressures, of being under the threat of a stereotype in an important situation. And there are even theories about the nature of churn. I talk about them in the book that elaborate what the different dimensions of churn are. Tony Smader has a great theory about that. It was studied in the stereotype threat literature. Well, what happens psychologically when you're under this pressure? That's, for example, Tony's theory. So I'm just getting a term that will orient people to this experience in a diverse situation. When you come into it, we're all kind of thinking, we're kind of in churn. Yeah. Thinking, I'm a white guy, and this could be where they could think, I'm a black guy, and I'm a woman. They could, I don't know, I hope not, right. I don't want to jump to conclusions and be careful, and, I don't want to be hyper, all those thoughts, that's churn.
Yeah. And now performance, your research has shown that performance can sometimes take a hit.
Yeah. When that predicament is intense, performance can take a hit. When the predicament is not particularly intense, the performance isn't that important, or you're really good at it and you don't experience much frustration doing it, then it doesn't occasion this churn. Yeah. But when you're kind of at the frontier of your skills and it's important to where you want to go in life, that pressure can be intense.
Yeah, it makes so much sense to me that when somebody does walk into one of those kind of higher stakes situations where it's in play, churn, I think we use churning for like stomach churning almost, right? Like that's kind of where it comes from. But it really fits mentally. And then I could just see it as a distraction, whether conscious or unconscious, that you're distracted by all these things instead of the purpose. Yeah. For why you're there.
You're kind of multitasking. Yeah. You're doing the task that's at hand here, but you're also trying to gauge, well, God, what are they thinking? And what if I don't do well? What does this frustration mean? I'm having, wait.
Yeah. Can you talk about just to get people up to speed, can you talk about those different conditions you had when you had students who were, they were writing a piece for, this was the story that they were writing a piece for a magazine that was going to come out at your university. Could you just tell us about that?
Yeah. That's a good. That's an experiment that Jeff Cohen did along with Lee Ross and I, who were sort of ancillary contributors to his experiment. But we brought subjects in. These are Stanford students, white and black, and we asked them to write an essay about their favorite teacher. And we told them if it was good, it might be published in this new magazine we're starting on teaching on campus. And we told them, put your best foot forward. We're going to evaluate these carefully and come back in 2 days and you'll get your evaluation. And when they come back, we're interested in how does the way this feedback is delivered, how does that affect their ability to trust the feedback?
As a listener of this podcast, you're already passionate about psychology, and Sage College Publishing helps you bring that passion into the classroom. Sage is an independent publisher focused on the social sciences. Beyond leading psychology research journals, Sage has deep roots in the discipline and offers textbooks across the entire major, from intro psych to brain and behavior, and from child development to research methods. Sage also offers Vantage, an intuitive learning platform recommended by 9 out of 10 instructors who have used it. It integrates with your LMS, it's easy to set up, simple to use, so that you can focus on teaching, not troubleshooting. So check out what Sage College Publishing has to offer at psychsessions.org/sage and let them be your partner in teaching the science of being human.
And what we found is that when you give the feedback straightforwardly, or you precede it with a kind of positive bromide of a statement, geez, you bring a lot of good energy to my class. You give the feedback that way. White students trust it, but black students are wary of it. They don't trust it as much. And it illustrates the phenomenon I'm focusing on here. And when you think about the black students' situation there, they don't know whether the feedback is coming from their work, what the essay they wrote, or the feedback giver's opinions of their group's abilities. They don't know for sure. We live in a society where that's a possibility. And so can I just wholeheartedly trust this without any signal that this person is not seeing me in terms of the stereotype? I don't know. And so they didn't trust it as much, and they weren't as motivated by it. But in the third condition, this is where this argument takes a very hopeful turn. In the third condition, the feedback giver says, "Look, we're using really high standards in evaluating these essays, and I've looked at your essay, and I believe, with this feedback, you could meet those standards." Wow. With those statements, the black students trusted the feedback more than any other group of participants in the experiment. And 3 times more of them took the essays home to work on them, used the feedback to improve the essays, as in any other condition of the experiment. So that a very profound effect. If you looked at the results of the first 2 conditions, where the feedback is given straightforwardly, that's rational. Why should we have to go to some special lengths here? The colorblind framework would suggest treat everybody the same, give them the feedback. But it doesn't work because in this society, those 2 identities have a history between them. And as a person, from the standpoint of black students, it creates an ambiguity as to what the feedback means. And you can see that wouldn't just be a one-time ambiguity. We're capturing it one time in an experiment, but it's going to be a feature of their experience in school and in the workplace on an ongoing basis. Can I trust this feedback? Can I trust this feedback? Who's giving it, and why are they giving it? And that ambiguity forces them to consider and keep alive the possibility that their identity is at play in this situation. The other feedback that worked puts that to rest, that churn to rest, by giving them a clear signal that they're not being seen in terms of that stereotype. 2 signals, in fact, that they're using high standards. If he didn't think I was smart, he wouldn't be, exposing me to high standards and evaluating my essay. And he said, if I use this feedback, I can meet those standards. Geez, that is so powerful. Mm-hmm. that they trust that. Yeah. Because it's telling them, you don't see me in terms of that racial stereotype. You could see me in terms of, I'm free of that.
Yeah.
Now my ambitions, my motivations have no break on them. They have no, I don't have to go into churn and worry and become wary of things. I can go with it. And you get a transformed situation. So I think, that kind of is helping us understand the sort of psychology of diversity and what that would suggest, certainly in terms of pedagogy and education, but also, how does a manager function? How does a physician give feedback? How does a lawyer manage clients? All of these circumstances in a multiracial, multi-ethnic society have this feature to them.
The hope that you offered in your talk, and I think in your book as well, is that the trust is there. It's ready.
It's ready.
Yeah. But under certain conditions only will we see that trust manifest.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I feel especially hopeful because I think those are manageable conditions. I think if we know that that's important, I think in the colorblind ethos, which as I point out, I think is essential in many aspects of life, from policing to the availability of mortgage capital, all these things should be colorblind, not mediated out, these resources and opportunities based on identity. So that's the case. But I think what we're not in full appreciation of is the experience of this kind of identity threat that happens in a diverse context. And one of the reasons for moving into the arguments laid out in Churn is that I wanted to expand the framework of that theory to be much broader than it was focused on performance. So much of stereotypes, people just think of it as a factor in test performance or athletic performance or something of that sort. But I see it as so much more of a general process that applies to many aspects of life, and in particular diversity. That when we're with our groups, as I've said, we're cool because we can feel safe space from those. From that possibility of being judged on my identity. But when diversity happens, all of a sudden, all of us have an identity because we all know we could be seen in terms of some negative image of our group. And if the situation is important and the work is challenging, boom.
Yeah.
We're in churn.
So you have researched this. You have seen this play out on the administrative side. You were provost for a period.
Mm-hmm.
How would this, how is diversity done incorrectly? Or how have you seen it done incorrectly? Mm-hmm. Trying to be more inclusive. I want to speak more, but I would think I'd just rather hear your answer. How can it be done incorrectly? And then how can it be done in an institutional level more correctly or better with the information that you're presenting here, and then also down to the classroom?
Yeah, very good question. I think it can be. It can be. I think everybody knows, whether we want to admit it or not, that certain approaches to it just haven't worked well. And sometimes in addition to not working, they can worsen the problem because you can elevate identity to such a prominent element of a situation that everybody's in churn now about their identity. So this effort, which is trying to get me comfortable with diversity and maybe trying to disabuse me of prejudicial attitudes or beliefs, can make me defensive. It kind of, and some don't, and some work well. I have advocated this, in the interest of full disclosure. I've certainly advocated this kind of training in the past. But I think some of it can be done well and is done well. But I also think there is a kind of conceptual vulnerability to these approaches, which is that they can worsen a sense of identity threat. and make it harder for a diverse situation to work well for people. And that one of the symptoms of which is that people tend to avoid those trainings as much as they can, or feel you need to force people to take them. I think, like in these experiments, there's an appetite in all of us for diversity to work well. But if in order to make that happen, I have to have my own identity and decency kind of threatened or on the line, I'm going to avoid that. So I think that is a vulnerability to those approaches, without a sweeping rejection of them, because I think some of the institutional commitment to them is important to continue. And that as a society, we learn how to do things better. How do you do things better?
Hi, PsychSessions listeners. This is Stephen Chu, one of the authors of Psychology in Your Life. For the new edition, I've created a series of brief videos that target common student problems in learning. They give practical, research-based strategies to help students learn more effectively. This new resource is called Improving Student Learning, a Video Guide. If you'd like to learn more about these videos or see a sample, feel free to reach out to me at stephen.chu, C-H-E-W, at www.norton.com.
How do you do things better? Well, I do think this is what I was sort of ending the talk with, I'm just going to put a term out there and then fill in why I think it can help things. But we want to build a kind of beloved community in the specific settings of our lives. I'm not talking about across the whole society. That's too much to think about. But in my classroom, in my workplace, in my military unit, in my dental office, to think of us, and that's the whole second half of the book is about how to do this at the individual level, how to be wise, how to see full humanity in difference, and to create a community in these settings for which that's normative, where it's a normative value in that situation to see full humanity and potential in somebody who's very different than me, comes from a very different set of circumstances. That's hard for people. We tend to take differences as indications of almost essentialistic differences. And I'm arguing that this is kind of the crux of the matter, is creating a community in which we begin to see people as, given that I see the full humanity there. And the trick to doing that is really to understand better the circumstances under which different identities have lived in the United States. There really are very dramatically different circumstances. And the more we understand those, the more we say, if I was in that spot, I might behave that way. I might get my back up. The story I tell about the parent-teacher conference, the African-American parents and the white teacher, and the African-American parents feel the stereotype threat that maybe their child is the school isn't going to see or invest in the development of his abilities. Maybe they're going to take his aggression if he as deeply characteristic and problematic. Maybe they're going to just see him as a potential athlete and not really take him seriously academically. These are the things that stereotypes could cause, and this conference is their chance to address those things. The teacher, for her part, because it's a diverse setting, the teacher could worry that the slightest criticism, despite her greatest intentions and hard work, treating it at really helping everybody develop in her class, that she could be seen as racist. So they're both nervous with each other. There's a lot of tension there. And they don't trust each other. Trust isn't completely settled in that matter. That's the crux of what's American diversity, and I think diversity in general. That's what psychologically I'm arguing is a real central component of that. That is this that kind of a divide and the churn that it creates. Both parties are really, their brains are buzzing and their physiology is buzzing in the presence of each other because it's an important situation. They can't quite trust that they're going to be seen, how they're going to be seen. And so that's the drama that the book takes on.
So I love that story. One of the reasons I like that story is because we can all put ourselves into that situation one way or another.
Yeah.
And we can easily understand how now the churn is going to be in play on both sides. And we're not there for what we need to be there for, which is this kid.
Yeah. One of my ambitions in churn just emerged as I started thinking about these things. But people think that stereotype threat is something only women and minorities have, and that it applies to their performance. They might think that. But for me, it's always been everybody feels that kind of stereotype threat pressure. And one of the real chief issues of diversity is precisely that pressure.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think I have a question about power then related to that, because even though we're all feeling it, sometimes there's situations where one party even with both parties turning, one party has more power than the other party, right?
Absolutely.
And in this situation, well, maybe I could just ask you the tough question, which is, what should this teacher do with this family in that situation? How do you build trust? If trust is waiting in the wings, how do you break through?
Yeah. How do you? Well, that is the question, and you have to read several chapters.
Okay,
you read the book because I do take that on quite explicitly what they have to do. And in general, the answer is that a lot more attention has to be devoted to building a trust in a relationship. If the two parties don't know each other, and this is the only opportunity they have to interact, that's rough. That's rough. To get past that in a setting like that. But so my general category recommendations would be more in the building. The parents need to understand they need to build a relationship with that teacher. And the teacher needs to understand she needs to build a relation with those parents. Because when these situations arise, there's going to need to be some trust in place for the particular feedback or whatever the issue is to be trusted. The trust has to be built so that the book is arguing that one whole avenue of making diversity work in our society is a focus on building trust in the real life settings of our lives. We haven't taken that as an approach to diversity so much as thinking that we have to eradicate prejudicial attitudes or give people cultural sophistication in order for them to be able to to develop relationships across boundaries. But I'm arguing that those things can help. Sometimes they can hurt, but that a perhaps more fundamental issue and something that is easier to do is to focus on building a connection with each other. Some teachers are really good at that. Yeah. They don't have much churn in their parent-teacher conferences because they've built it. They know how to make a contact, to reach out, to show up at a community event. Woo! That is a powerful signal that you see that group's full humanity and that you are invested in it, that they can count on you. That goes a long way. Giving feedback, like in the experiment, where you don't hold the person under suspicion. Let me see if you can do it. How could I trust that from a member of a group that's never been particularly sympathetic to my group? But if that same person says, as in there, we're using high standards, I think you can meet them. I want to help you meet them. Here's some help. Mm-hmm. Woo!
Yeah,
it's transformative in that.
Yeah, I hear you saying, like, on the parent side of things, they need to get to know that teacher, and the teacher needs to send out the signal that I'm a safe person to have this conversation with.
Yeah, I have a chapter in the book where how does trust face power? And I do think the most, it basically boils down to who should go first in the setting in offering trust. And I think that generally has to be the most powerful, the more powerfully situated person in that setting. That could be a white teacher in a diverse classroom, or it could be a black teacher in a diverse, diversity training situation. Mm-hmm. They have to send signals that all the people can trust them.
Yeah.
That is a task of first order of importance.
There was another study you talked about that was done at your campus where it was about proximity and students having a conversation. And I think that unpacks some of this. I think in one condition, and I'll just let you maybe quickly share it, but in one condition, it was giving the subject a little bit of guidance on how to approach the situation, which really helped.
Yeah. Yeah, we're interested in, well, how would you get a white male to feel comfortable in a diverse conversation about something where they could be stereotyped as racist, where they could be seen as racist? That was the question of that experiment. So we had white participants, and they discovered that they were going to be talking in this conversation, that the study was about a conversation, and that they would be talking either to two white guys or to two like them or two black guys. And that they would be talking about something non-threatening, like love and relationships, or something that was threatening. This is a study designed by Phil Goff at Yale when he was a student at Stanford. And so now they're in either a kind of threatening situation or non-threatening situation. And the experimenter then says, well, I'm going to go down the hall. I'm going to get your two conversation partners. And while I'm gone, would you arrange the chairs for the conversation? And the finding was that when they were going to talk to two white guys, these are all white participants, when they were going to talk to two other white guys or two black guys about love and relationship, a non-threatening topic, they put the chairs very close together. But when they were going to talk to two black guys about racial profiling, they distanced themselves more. Kind of wary. They're churning. How do you defeat that? Well, it gets to your question. It was defeated with a simple piece of advice to the students that, look, nobody really knows how to handle these conversations. They're complicated because the history of the United States is part of the issue here. So you should try as best you can and relax in this situation. Don't try to say things that will prove you're not prejudiced, like some of my best friends are, or my cousin married or something. Don't go down that path. That'll be a red flag. Just try to take it as an opportunity to learn about somebody else's experience in life. Acknowledge that they implicitly, not explicitly, but implicitly understand they could have a somewhat different experience of this society than you do. And this is a topic and a set of people with whom you can maybe find out about that experience. So your general curiosity will convey that you appreciate their full humanity, that the differences are shared humanity dealing with different circumstances, and that this is a chance to understand what that experience has been like for them. So rather than make speeches about yourself not being prejudiced, which is beside the point, and a big red flag for the other side, don't do that. Ask questions. Just try, when in doubt, ask a question rather than make a statement. So with that instruction in mind, there was an appetite to get together and have a really meaningful conversation. And they just needed to know that they weren't going to be at identity risk under this, that they could, that's all they needed to know. And then when that happened, they moved their chairs close together.
Yeah, so helpful. I'm thinking about, as well as so many teachers of psychology are going to be listening to this, I'm thinking about my classroom. Like the one area, I know that there's many areas of my life where I could maybe put something like churn into practice, the ideas here. But I really think about my classroom because I really want it to be a space where students can learn without the churn, right?
Yeah.
I'm at a community college. It's pretty diverse. There are people who are listening to this who teach at really diverse institutions and who teach large classrooms. Do you have any suggestions that either first day of class or throughout, or the way that you approach the class, anything that you would want to pass along to teachers?
Well, one thing that comes to mind, sometimes people can be much more creative than I can be about how to use these things to address their own classrooms. I think in my case as a teacher, which I have to rush home and do to begin tomorrow, just acknowledging these processes tends to alleviate everybody's pressure a little bit.
Yeah.
Because all the story about the parents and the teacher, everybody feels a little relieved. Oh, you're not gonna call me a racist, right? That's not what this is all about, is the depth of my guilt. That this is not about that, right? This is something where I can talk about these things because we're talking about the process in a way that isn't putting blame on anybody. It's just working through a realistic understanding of what the tension is in the situation. So I think sometimes just the acknowledgement of these processes signals to people that might otherwise feel some identity threat there, that this is a place where, interestingly, I can be pretty free of that worry. I don't have to focus on that worry. So that finding a way to do that, can be helpful. It can be an incidental discussion that's structured at the beginning of a course. It can be an explicit lecture. It can be handing out material that students read that kind of conveys that you as the professor know these things. Mm-hmm. You're not blind. You're not. I think the threat increases when you tell me you're colorblind, because then you're telling me basically, you don't see a huge part of my life.
Right.
And I can't trust you because you don't see that. And you're hell-bent on not seeing that, in fact. You think that's the morally right thing to do. And in many instances, as I pointed out, it is. But in this case, it's kind of, it's a stiff arm to students whose abilities are negatively stereotyped in a setting like that.
That's incredibly helpful. Lots of times, and we're just a couple minutes from being finished here. I know you have a plane to catch. Lots of times on these podcast conversations, we'll talk about folks' background. We won't have too much time to get into that, but I do know that you have a story of, if students do listen to this, I think faculty will be interested in this. What was education like for you? Maybe just in a couple minutes. What was education like for you growing up? College, what kind of bumps were there for you? And maybe how did you become the researcher, Dr. Claude Steele, through all that in 2 minutes or less?
Yeah. So I definitely rely on my autobiography a bit to get some insight into the experience of students in diverse settings. I certainly had that. I began college when maybe the first wave of African-American students who could go to integrated colleges in the early 60s. I started college in 63. And that was just the first wave of us. And so a lot of these processes, I certainly was not aware of them or able to articulate them in the way I'm doing now. But they've definitely informed my thinking now because I had many of these challenges and tried to and benefited from some people who were marvelous teachers. Ralph Sabula, Ed Crosby. These were people whose names I think they're no longer with us, sadly. But in my little college, Hiram College, were especially effective at kind of bringing me into a sense of not feeling so much identity threat and able to identify with a field like psychology and a science like psychology. They shepherded that transition. And then for a long time, I didn't think about these things. I would say the first 20 years of my career, I was working on addictive behaviors and the nature of the self and dissonance processes and the like. And it wasn't until I was a full professor that I turned to research that eventuated in stereotype threat and now in churn and so on. So I think I attribute to these teachers a great deal of intuitive wisdom about how to pull a kid who had every reason to disidentify and feel threatened and did feel threatened and so on, into fully identifying with the science, with the discipline. I could see, I loved the field. I still love the field. I fell in love. It was an infatuation that turned into a real love relationship. And I read everything. I read the history of psychology. I internalized it as a way. So, and for me to be able to do that, given from where I came from, I have to put a lot of the responsibility on those teachers.
Well, thank you for sitting down with me, and thank you for writing this book. Thanks for taking your research off campus and putting it into books so that we can all benefit from it. The book is Churn. Do you know what? It's coming out in March, I think. Is that
March 3rd? March
3rd. So go pick that up, folks. And this was Dr. Claude Steele on PsychSessions. Thanks.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure.
Hey everyone, Garth here. Thanks for listening to PsychSessions. If you could go to wherever you listen to our podcast and you would follow that podcast or like it, it really does help us as we are trying to get out to more teachers of psychology. Also, if you haven't checked out our website, please visit psychsessions.org and sign up for our monthly newsletter. We offer free resources and valuable news that you are going to want to know related to the teaching of psychology. Thanks.